Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this Psych Byte. May is dedicated to mental health awareness, and this week is Mental Health Awareness Week. We are bringing you this Psych Byte to continue in our efforts of raising awareness of mental health and combat the stigma that is associated with it. We hope that this interview inspires you to take action and promote the message of good mental health for all. We are so pleased to interview Zachary Burton and Elisa Hofmeister from the Manic Monologues. The Manic Monologues are a groundbreaking theatrical drama that gives voices to real people whose lives have been touched by mental health stories. The cast share brave stories from across the world that convey struggle and pain, but also humor, triumph, and joy. The Manic Monologues is the creation of producer Zachary Burton, diagnosed with bipolar in 2017 while attending Stanford, and director Elisa Hofmeister. After owning his diagnosis, Zachary decided to do something about it and shared his story to the public. Both IBPF and the Manic Monologues are committed to providing personal stories and shifting the stigma surrounding mental conditions together. Thank you so much for joining us today, Zach and Elisa.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you so much.
So starting off, can you just describe what initially inspired you both to launch the Manic Monologues?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think so. As you mentioned, of course, there was a big change in both Elisa and my life when in mid 2017, I had my first psychotic break, and then in the following weeks to months was diagnosed with bipolar. And so for both of us, at first it was this incredibly frightening thing because we had great support from family members and friends. So we were lucky in that regard, but there was also just seemed to be this lack of relatable stories. I remember this particular instance, many instances where Elisa would be looking, various websites online, and there's just not very much hopeful information out there. It's really a lot of horror stories. It can be very frightening. And so we basically wanted to take our own experience and sort of the luck we had had with our support systems and turn our own recovery into helping others, not just by highlighting my story. I think it's important to note that, mine is just one of some 20 stories that are actually shared during the play. And so we really wanted to highlight that diversity of experience with mental illness and ultimately provide support through others through these encouraging stories and just these diverse stories of various mental health disorders.
Yeah, that's amazing. We know that, it's so much easier to move forward with a diagnosis or, be accepting of your own diagnosis when you hear that other people are experiencing the same thing that you are. That's really
Absolutely.
interesting. And the choice to make it, in the theater, in the play, I think is really interesting too. So, can you kind of describe what a live play offers to the audience that might just be different from reading a story online?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we were really excited about with live theater is its ability to really capture an audience and provide a group experience for people. So our first aim with this really was holding a room full of people in attention to these stories for a set period of time so that it became sort of this collective experience that everyone went through together. And this really goes along with our theme of trying to bring people together rather than have them experience mental illness separately. I think another thing that's a little bit different about theater than maybe reading stories, although both are super powerful and great ways to spread awareness, is that in a story, you're using a lot of your own imagination while you're reading someone else's words. But with live theater, you're really experiencing someone else's experience on a stage. And so there's less imagination and there's more empathizing that you're doing as you're watching someone present to you with their own life story, or in the case of us, we've got actors who are representing the stories that have been submitted.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, it's a totally different experience. And so, Zach, for you, kind of sharing your story this way, kind of publicizing it, how has that affected your own mental health journey? Has it made it easier? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, it has absolutely made it easier for me. I think along with it, sort of the inspiration for Elisa and myself was, just sort of this fear and this observation that this stigma around mental illness can be so poisonous, in part because those of us who have mental illness and then our loved ones who are with us, we're really encouraged and pressured by society and other expectations not to talk about it. And for me, that was largely a fear, and from friends I've heard who've gone through similar things, it's largely a fear that we'll be judged for opening up about this. Maybe our friends and colleagues will judge us in some way. Our employers may even let us go or fire us. Our loved ones, may even leave us. And so I think, I just sort of found that to be completely different, as terrifying as it was to open up. And, there was an early case where the Washington Post, we were lucky to have them cover the show and talk about Elisa and my journey. But, one of their lines was like, Zach Burton, PhD student with bipolar disorder. And who wants that to be out there in the public eye? But, I think we both found that, very contrary to pushing people away from us, opening up actually brought our friends and our family and our loved ones, our professors, a lot closer to us. And we even had, some of the beautiful moments where, absolute strangers who attended the show reach out to us later, reach out to us through our emails, through the website, and share their experiences. And in that way, we grew closer to complete strangers as well over that sort of shared experience, that is unfortunately so stigmatized oftentimes. And so I think it's really beautiful, that opening up, and has really helped with my own journey. And I think, can help all of us, just opening up and sharing. And like Elisa said, empathizing with one another.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, kind of going off of that, Elisa, how is, you're so closely involved in this and in Zach's journey with this, and how has your involvement in the Manic Monologues changed your perception of mental health and or your own journey with mental health and your relationship with Zach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I very much think of myself as an ally to people who are living with mental health conditions. And more than that, I think this experience has really helped me see that all of us are affected by mental health in different ways. That may be your own mental health struggles, but you will invariably be close to people in your life who are affected by mental health conditions. It's 1 in 4 in the US, so that's a lot of people. And when you love someone with a mental health condition, I think really the thing that this play has taught me, and my experience with Zack has taught me, is that you should be open to discussing mental health with them, because on both sides, it really opens up your experience with someone that you care about. And mental health is just a part of life. All of us are going to have ups and downs. It's part of the human condition. And so I think my hope is that my experience with this teaches other allies that sharing is a beautiful thing, and it's really a way to get to know the people you care about better and on a deeper level.
Yeah, that's true. And as a caregiver, in a way you are a caregiver for someone that you love, how are you prioritizing your mental health, in this relationship as well? Because it's so important. I mean, to be able to provide and give the best care to someone else, you need to be making sure that you're caring for yourself too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one thing I think about a lot as a caregiver is that the focus of these conversations usually lands on the person who is struggling with the mental health condition. And that's where it should be. They should be at the center of our conversations as we support them. But depending on how close you are to that person, you're going to be affected on some level. So you can think of it sort of like concentric circles. And I placed myself very close to Zack. So specifically when he was going through the psychotic break, it was really hard on me. And I struggled a lot with it. You know, it was a terrifying time in my life as well. And so going to the circle metaphor, what I did is I leaned a lot on the people who were supporting me, and really shared out to them so that they could support me as I was going through it as well. I think all of us need to be really consistent about practicing self-care, and finding things that bring us joy both together and then also separately. And so I think, you know, in some ways, my experience with Zack and his mental health condition has really made my own self-care and my own mental health a bigger priority for me. And so I think that's been great. I think, again, mental health affects all of us, whether or not you have a diagnosed condition. And so building skills of resiliency is going to be good for everyone. And I think that's something that all of us should be talking about more.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about it more just leads to more people who are going to be seeking out help and getting the treatment that they need. And yeah, just overall changing the perceptions that everybody has towards it. And so then, yeah, moving back to the Manic Monologues, you know, just can you guys dive a little bit deeper into like how that combats stigma and misinformation regarding mental health and those who have mental health conditions?
Yeah, totally. This is something I'm really passionate about. So misinformation spreads best when people are uninformed and when they have a knee-jerk reaction to something that's making them afraid. So the best way to combat misinformation is to provide just more high-quality information. I think one of the most helpful things for me when I was terrified for Zack and his well-being was hearing about his family member's experience with bipolar, because it kind of gave me a path forward and made me realize, okay, this is going to be a part of his life, but lives are rich. There's a lot more to it. And so what we're hoping to do by presenting all of these diverse stories is really highlighting that mental health is more complicated and we don't need to have a knee-jerk reaction to it. There's a way that we can talk about it without being afraid. And then once we're able to kind of bring people into a space where they're more comfortable about opening up about it, that's going to be the best thing to really combat some of the misinformation that's out there and that's so prevalent. So yeah, I think just we believe in having a diversity of stories, because this is what's going to allow people to realize that everyone is going to experience it differently, just like they're experiencing maybe a difficult boss differently, or you know, having a child, or really any of the things that all of us go through in life. So we're really excited about where it's going to go from here as people start getting more information about mental illness.
Yeah, that is really, I mean, your passion comes through too in the way that you speak about it, and that is going to make such, I mean, that passion is what everybody else will feed off of too, and want to just be eager to learn more, because I want to just keep on hearing you talk.
I know. I think, yeah, that's the whole goal, is once you start getting into people's personal stories of how they've dealt with mental health, is beautiful and it's fascinating. And so, yeah, that's really the goal, is to make people want to engage with it and want to learn more.
Yeah, definitely. And so throughout this whole entire process, what has been, you know, a memorable moment for either of you guys that you've had while you're achieving, you know, your mission to spark these conversations and share this relatable lived experiences?
Yeah, you know, I don't think either of us realized how big, you know, of course, the diagnosis and our own experience dealing with mental health was going to be a large part of our lives and will continue to be. But I don't think either Elisa or myself realized how big of a part the Manic Monologues would play in our lives as well. And it's just been so heartwarming, really, and encouraging to see people embrace these stories and really buy into the mission. And so I think there's, you know, one memorable moment that really, I think, has stuck with both of us was during the first performance, and so sort of as Elisa's alluded to, this is a collection of true stories that we've gathered. And so we were lucky enough to have a couple of our storytellers, so our story contributors, attend one or more of those first performances at Stanford last year. And one woman came up to us after the performance, and her story was one of the particularly touching stories of the performance, where she detailed her suicide attempt that her family, and in particular her then 17-year-old son, were witness to. And so she came up to us and she mentioned that her son had heard that she was writing her story for this play, and he wanted her to share it with him. And so sort of both Elisa and I were really holding our breaths, because this has been one of the particularly difficult stories, I think, for the audience members to hear. And then she said that, his reading of the story really got them communicating again. And that was sort of particularly remarkable because they hadn't really spoken in the 6 years since this event, since her suicide attempt. And it was just such a beautiful highlight of, the power that this honest sharing and storytelling does have in opening up conversation and dialogue, not only between strangers, but, amongst very close family members. So that moment has really stuck with us. And there have been a lot of other really beautiful and touching moments like that, both with strangers who we had never met and also with really close friends and family members.
Yeah, wow, that is really powerful. Yeah, just goes to show that what you're doing is leading to amazing outcomes that hopefully will just continue to grow. And then, that family or whoever is listening will kind of have similar experiences and maybe sharing their own personal stories at home or in private settings, or with other different public, sources too. So kind of like when, as an audience member, or our community who's listening right now, both those who are living with mental illness and those who are not, what can they learn from the Manic Monologues?
Yeah, I think we've touched on this in some of our other answers, but we really encourage people to go and attend as many events as they can that center around mental health, because I think the more you learn, the more you're just going to enrich your own life and your understanding of how mental health and mental illness affect people. So yeah, again, we're presenting a lot of diverse stories. So people can learn that throughout mental illness and mental health struggles, there's a lot of resilience. They can also come and learn that not all moments with mental health disorders are tragic. Some of them are really funny. And then last, I think, you can come and get a window into the private parts of people's lives that are hard to deal with and are hard to talk about. And you can come out of that experience in a more thoughtful way with more empathy and compassion for what people around you are going through every day. So I think it just gives you a deeper understanding of what we're all really going through, privately or not. And hopefully will kind of arm you with some tools to learn how to share better your own story, or ask questions of the people around you about how they're doing as well.
Yeah.
I think highlighted in a lot of our stories are moments where loved ones or family members had a conversation with someone with a mental health condition that really changed things for them. And so I think, that's another thing that you can take away from the play, is that conversations really matter.
Yeah, that's really true. And I love your point about, it's not just all the bad things that happen. There's the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. Everything that you're sharing are just truths. And it's good to get those truths out so that people, know that that's what happens, and that it's okay. And it's just the way of life, and you can move forward with that and reflect on those really powerful, beautiful things, and also reflect on maybe the things that aren't as beautiful, but you can keep learning from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is the single most important tip that you have to share with loved ones? And that's kind of a general question, but
Yeah, that's a great one.
yeah.
I guess I'll go ahead and share one first. I think this really touches on the support Elisa was talking about, these sort of varying, these concentric circles of support. I think my message to loved ones, to folks who are close to those dealing with mental illness, is that your presence and your support is far more important than your loved ones or than I could ever thank you for, or appreciate you for. I know in my case, without that support, well, really, I should say with that support, it was really life-saving actually to have family members and Elisa and very close friends there, from that initial psychotic break through the diagnosis and recovery. It truly is life-saving to have that support.
Yeah, and I will say for people who might be struggling with talking about their own mental health condition, just know that the people around you who care about you want to know. I feel like anytime a loved one or a close friend decides to confide in me and what they're going through, I feel like it is such an honor and such a gift to hear that, and to know that they trust me to that extent, and are willing to allow me to kind of hold that burden with them for a little while. So, if you've got something on your chest that you need to get off of it, just know that there are people in your life who want to know what's going on.
Those are really great pieces of advice. I know that, so many people will really enjoy hearing that and knowing that you want to help as a caregiver, and you also want that help as the individual who needs it. And so, to wrap things up, for those of us who are interested, where can we find more information on the Manic Monologues? And I know times are a bit different right now, so we're not able to come together in person, but just where they can find information for, upcoming performances and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a website. It's called themanicmonologues.org, and we keep it up to date with all of our upcoming performances. We've also got a form that you can submit to contact us, because we're really a mission-driven organization. We are trying to spread the word. We're trying to spread these stories across the country. And we would love to collaborate with anyone who wants to bring it to their own community. So if you're watching this webinar and you think, wow, I would love to see that, I would love that to be in my own hometown, reach out to us, and we would love to talk further with you about how, after coronavirus is over, we can come together in person, or we can even discuss how to make things happen virtually and how to hold these conversations over webinars and phone calls. Obviously that's what we're doing today, and we think that anytime we get the opportunity to talk about mental health, people are going to benefit from it. So yeah, we're very open to talking more.
Definitely. That's wonderful. Well, thank you for, sharing your story with us today, and, diving into the wonderful impact that the Manic Monologues has had on the mental health community, and also for joining us and celebrating both Mental Health Awareness Month and Mental Health Awareness Week. And to the viewers out there, thank you for joining us, and I hope you all continue to spread awareness, combat stigma, and educate those around you on what mental health truly means. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.